How's everybody doing? I hope you're all enjoying your weekend so far. I think this story will expose a lot of what went on before the Michael Meldish murder. There's a lot of moving parts to the story, but I'll start it when I was back doing time in Fishkill. One of the guys who was away with us was Joey Lebrano. On the streets, they call him Joey Relay, and back then he was just a Lucchese associate. Presently, he's a Bronx captain. Joey, myself, and our families went on a few conjugal visits during the same time. And it was on those visits that I got to know his wife. They had a small son, and so did I. They had a little playground for them that they were playing, and we were outside a lot with the kids. His wife was an attractive woman. I'm not going to mention her name, but from the conversations that I had with her, she seemed pretty down to earth. Not long after his release, Joey and his wife broke up. At some point after that, she began dating Mikey Mancuso. This all takes place when he becomes the Bonanno acting boss, sometime in 2004. Mikey Knows is a former member of the East Harlem Purple Gang. As most people know, the Purple Gang was a notorious group of guys. Most were related to members of the Five Families. During the 70s and 80s, they acted as a renegade family. Many former Purple Gang members went on to be inducted into the New York families, just as Mikey Knows did. The Purple Gang was headed by Joey and Michael Meldish, who were feared even by members of organized crime. In the summer of August 1984, Mikey Knows was involved in a domestic dispute that turned deadly. After arguing with his wife, he shot her in the head, killing her. He would later describe the incident as an accident, even though he took her body and left it on a bench outside Jacoby Hospital in the Bronx. For that crime, he would be convicted of manslaughter in the second degree, and he was sentenced to 4.5 to 9 years. A sentence he began serving in 1986 and was released in 1996. Sometime after his release, he became inducted into the Bonanno family and was placed in Patty DiFilippo's crew. And in time, he would be elevated to a captain's position. When Vinny Gorgeous Basciano became the Bonanno acting boss, he made Mikey Knows his acting underboss. But Vinny Gorgeous' time as a boss was short-lived. He was arrested on November 19, 2004 in a racketeering indictment. At this time, Mikey Knows took over as the acting boss. And his time, too, on the street as an acting boss would be limited. In February 2006, Mikey Knows was arrested for a racketeering indictment. Naturally, he was worried about the charges he faced, but he was more concerned about something else, his girl, the former Mrs. Lebrano. And he was worried because he was now locked up and this attractive woman was walking around the streets alone. So he reaches out to his former Purple Gang leaders, the Meldish brothers, asking them to look after this woman while he's away. Michael Meldish wasted no time in doing just that. He began checking in on this woman, and one thing led to the other, and they began a relationship. People began seeing the new couple together and started to gossip. In taped prison calls, Mikey Knows displayed how infatuated he was with this woman. Supposedly in the tapes, Mikey Knows sounds nothing like a boss at all. But his worst nightmare came to fruition. The rumor mill had reached the prison, and Mikey Knows learned that his girl had been spotted around town with Michael Meldish. And so begins the Mikey Knows phone calls and letters. He decided that he needed to send Michael Meldish a threat. And not only one, but he sent several messages for Michael Meldish to keep his distance from this woman. What Mikey Knows failed to realize was this wasn't someone who shook in their boots at the sight of wise guys. This was a guy who made wise guys shake in their boots. Mikey Knows was so enraged with Michael Meldish for dating his girl and putting his threats on the pay me no mind list. So he decided to take matters in his own hands. What he did next is wrong on so many levels. He's not only a member of Cosa Nostra, he's a boss of a family. And remember, you lead by example. So what did he do? He decided the pen is mightier than the sword, and he writes a long letter to Michael Melnish's wife, explaining to her that her husband's cheating on her with his girl. Michael Melnish's wife receives the letter, and as you can imagine, this causes a boudel, as we say, in their house. Michael Meldish not only had a close relationship with the acting Lucchese boss Matty Madonna, but he was an associate to the family. So he takes the letter and shows it to Matty, and Matty immediately starts telling everyone that Mikey Knows is a rat. He even tells the Bonanno family that they need to take him down from the boss position. In my opinion, Matty should have never did that. He has no say in what another family does. There was a Lucchese family wake that took place in July of 2012. In attendance was a Bonanno member named Johnny Joe Spirito Jr. His father, Johnny Joe Sr., is a well-respected member who's very close to Mikey Knows. During my time, Johnny Joe Jr. went to visit his father in prison. After that visit, he goes and tells the Bonanno family that he was assigned the underboss position. No one thought to question it, and it was total bullshit. So this kid literally made himself the underboss. When Joe Camerano took over the acting boss position, the first thing he did was shelve Johnny Joe Jr. for pulling that stunt. However, presently, Johnny Joe Jr. has been taken off the shelf. Anyway, during the Lucchese wake, Matty tells Johnny Joe Jr. that Mikey knows is a rat, and that the Lucchese family is not recognizing him. Then he tells him anyway, we don't recognize a boss who's in prison. Not the greatest statement coming from a family whose boss is also in prison. So Johnny Joe Jr. leaves the wake and meets up with the members of the Bonanno family to tell him what Matty just said. The Bonannos make a foolish decision. They get about 15-20 guys and they storm the Lucchese Social Club as a show of force. Their consigliere, Anthony Rubito, wanted to make a more diplomatic approach, but they left him waiting to be picked up on a corner in Williamsburg, Queens, and according to him, they never picked him up. Most of the people heard the story of what took place. Basically, they stormed into the club, a lot of yelling and screaming went on, and nothing more than that happened. As I mentioned, it wasn't a smart move. In fact, it's a perfect example of people in positions calling shots with not an ounce of wisdom between them. In the interim, Michael Meldish continues seeing the woman and pays zero mind to his former underling's threats. Most likely, he wasn't thinking of Mikey Nose during the August 12th feast in Harlem. He was sitting outside the infamous Harlem restaurant Rayo's. And while he was enjoying his night, he was approached by 3 Bonanno members: Ernie Aiello, Johnny Joe Jr., and a guy named Tommy Garbage. They approached Michael Meldish and they attacked him. 3 guys on 1. So naturally, they got the better of him. And then they delivered another message from Mikey Nose. They told him to stay away from the woman. This all took place in front of Matty Madonna, who made no attempt to help or have anyone intervene. The Bonannos were in total violation by doing this. Nonetheless, it didn't keep Michael Meldish away from the woman. But what he did do was he set out on getting revenge and basically acted on his own without Lucchese approval. In June of 2013, Bonanno member Enzo the Baker Stagno was shot while sitting in his SUV on East 111th Street in Harlem. The shooter was Terrence Caldwell, a neighborhood friend of Michael Meldish. In fact, Michael Meldish was supposed to be his getaway driver, but he pulled away too fast, and Caldwell flagged down a cab and got away. Stagno survived, but admitted to the police that he was a Bonanno member, which automatically got him shelved. Why Michael Meldish picked him to seek revenge on, I have no idea. It's previously been reported that Stagno was one of the guys that administered the beating outside of Rayo's, but I had confirmation that this was not true. The Lucchese and Bonanno families were having enough trouble, and Michael Meldish didn't help matters with this unsanctioned hit. According to what's known, the Stagno shooting caused friction between Michael Meldish and Matty Madonna. There were several arguments between them, some involving money, and in the end, Matty felt that Michael Meldish disrespected him. I believe that Michael Meldish became a liability and a dangerous one for the Lucchese family. They felt they needed to save face and they needed to handle him. Michael Meldish was killed in the Bronx on November 15, 2013. Ironically, his neighborhood friend, Terrence Caldwell, was the shooter. And nobody was more happy to hear this news than Mikey Nose. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit the like button and leave your comments down below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, you could do that as well. And if you think friends and family might enjoy this video, please share it and thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next one.